What's up, everybody? I'm Joey Alfieri with a new episode of the PodcAls. I'm live from St-Jérôme at Alouettes training camp. I haven't missed a practice yet. It is Friday morning right now, getting ready to head to practice for another 2 days and watch these guys work because the first week has been a treat. It felt like we'd never get here, but finally, winter's over, the sun is shining, and Alouettes football is back, baby. All right, we've got a lot to get to on this episode of the PodcAls. We'll be speaking to Tyson Philpot, Grey Cup hero and the most outstanding Canadian in the championship game in 2023. He'll be joining us in just a few minutes' time. I did also want to break down the receiver kind of landscape and what's going on. I know there's a lot of people who can't come to St-Jérôme during the week who want to know, like they keep messaging me, like, who are some of the new guys that stand out? I'll take you through all of that fun stuff at the wide receiver position here on this episode of the PodcAls. Before we get going, I just want to give a shout out to Poulet Rouge St-Jérôme, one of my favorite restaurants to visit here in St-Jérôme. I mean, I know that the players have been talking about it, that they're going out there and they're ordering from Poulet Rouge. It's a great, healthy option. Nice big bowl with some rice. You can get some quinoa. You can get some chicken and some vegetables. It's not just healthy, it's tasty and delicious as well. So if you're coming down to a practice to watch the Alouettes on the field, make sure you head to St-Jérôme. You stick around St-Jérôme to eat after you see a practice, and you go to 900 Boulevard Grignon, door 4 in St-Jérôme for Poulet Rouge Carrefour du Nord, which is the location here closest to the facility, the Claude Beaulieu Sports Complex that the Alouettes are practicing at. So I know that it's a big hit with the players. It's a big hit with me. And make sure that you check them out before you leave St-Jérôme. If you don't live in St-Jérôme, before you leave St-Jérôme, make sure that you grab a bite to eat at Poulet Rouge Carrefour du Nord because they are a proud sponsor of the PodcAls throughout training camp. All right. Let's jump into it. What do I think the Alouettes will look like at wide receiver this year? Look, it's tough to say. I'm going to say this, that we've seen today, Friday, we're going to see our third padded practice since the start of camp. You know, there are limits to how many times people can practice with pads on the field here in the Canadian Football League, right? So to me, I think it's one of those situations where, yes, you can get a good evaluation of the receiver position. It's not necessarily like the offensive line or the running back position where you need to see them in pads. I think it helps to see the guys run in pads and run, live fire, not just one-on-ones, but you have a pretty good idea with the receiver position exactly what is going on. And who is making plays. It's really a question of, catching, securing the ball, running crisp routes. I think it's easy to see for anybody who follows football. I think if a receiver is playing well or not. Can they block? That's a big part of this offense as well. Is you need your receivers to be physical. You need them to block and open things up for their teammates. And so we've seen a little bit of that as well in camp. But, I think to me, the guy who's going to join us shortly, I think this is a big season for Tyson Philpot. I think this is a guy who has a sky-high ceiling. We've already seen it. Unfortunately, the first 2 training camps of his career, he's been injured. He's missed a lot of time in camp, but played in every game 2 years ago in his rookie season, missed quite a few games last year, and it just took a little bit of time to get that chemistry down with Cody Fajardo. We'll get into that with Tyson Philpot in just a couple of minutes. But, I think Tyson Philpot has 1,000-plus yard receiving ability. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if he reached that number as soon as this season. I think his partner in crime, Keon Julian Grant, those are 2 guys who, are outstanding receivers. I know they're both Canadian, but those are guys who are just good receivers no matter what the passport says. Those are guys who can make plays. For people who don't remember, Keon Julian Grant last year, before going down with that first injury he suffered late July against the Calgary Stampeders, top 5 in receiving yards in the Canadian Football League. That's what you need to know about Keon Julian Grant. Speedy dude, good hands, can make plays. So those guys are locks. Tyler Snead, it just looks like he's hit another level. I'm not going to lie to you. Just looks more comfortable around the facility. I thought he was a little shy last year, not on the field, but off the field. This year, I think you can see you have a guy who's coming into year 2, knows the team, knows the coaches, knows the people around the team. And he just seems like not that he wasn't confident before, but to me, I think Tyler Snead hits another level this year. And I have to tell you, I think the most consistent guy in camp, and I asked Jason Moss about this player a couple days ago for my training camp notebook on the Alouettes website, but I think Cole Speaker has probably been the most consistent receiver in camp. I mean, he's caught almost everything thrown his way. He's made play after play. He's not necessarily the quickest guy, but he's a guy who runs great routes and who gets himself open. I think that those four guys could very well factor in. They did sign Tevin Jones from the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He's a guy who played with Cody Fajardo a couple of years ago. He was coached by Jason Moss. He knows exactly what's going on in that system. So those are the five guys, I think, on paper that have been running with the starters. I know those are the five guys. But the thing is, there are other dudes here who have made plays, guys who have been really impressive, guys that I've liked, guys that I find are consistent with their route running and their hands and their explosiveness. So Ramon Bowman is one of those guys. If you're coming to the scrimmage, which is in St-Jérôme tomorrow on Saturday at 4:40, you'll notice number 73. I'm convinced that he's a guy who's going to make plays. He's just he comes in and hasn't dropped the ball from what I've seen. He's been real consistent. And he seems to have a good chemistry with the backup quarterbacks that he's been running with, no matter who it is. So, I've really liked 73. I've really liked Tyjon Lindsey, number 88, a former Seattle Seahawk. He's a smaller guy. He's listed about 5'9", 185, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in there. But he's a guy who can be explosive with the ball in his hands. He's really looked comfortable with the waggle. He's looked comfortable. A guy who's been in Montreal with Montreal for less than a week on the field. For him to look this comfortable is something else. And so I know there are a lot of questions about who's going to replace Austin Mack. I don't think one guy here replaces 1,200 yards. I think it's going to be, Philpot giving you a little more, and Julian Grant giving you a little more, Snead and Speaker and Jones giving you each a little bit more, with Jones getting, that position. But the competition is there, and there is nothing guaranteed for any of these receivers on the football field when it comes to opening week and opening night in Winnipeg on June the 6th. It is a fierce battle. I haven't even touched on some of the other guys. Jalen Wayne, who's a family member of Reggie Wayne, the former Colts wide receiver who had an outstanding career. I mean, Jalen Wayne has looked really sharp in camp as well. There's just guys that they've brought in, and I think this is where Danny Machocha and his staff, they deserve credit, because at the end of the day, it takes a lot to find number one receivers, but you go out there and you find an Austin Mack last year, and then you lose him to the NFL, and then you got to do the whole thing over again. And with the guys that they've brought in, I mean, it's just impressive to see the depth that have been here. Jose Barbone had a cup of coffee with the Calgary Stampeders, a former Temple player. He's been really good as well, wearing number 81. You've got, mentioned Charleston Rambo, who signed on the eve of training camp, former Miami receiver, had 1,000 yards there. He's been explosive as well. And, it's just been, it's been interesting to watch these guys compete, because at the end of the day, I mean, look, to dethrone the Canadians that the Alouettes have is going to be tough. I think right now, and I'll say this, I think they have a trio of really good, proven Canadian wide receivers, because I do think that Shedler Furvius, who's a 5th-round pick last year, is going to have an impact on the field. I think he'll back up Philpot and Julian Grant for now, but I can see this guy developing into a starting receiver. And I think he was a contributor in the second half of the year on special teams last year. Well, shoot, I think he's going to do the exact same thing again. So don't be surprised if 87 is on the roster week in and week out, which is impressive for a 5th-round pick, because he played an important role in the second half of the year last year. And this year, he looks even more confident. So to me, I think you have Julian Grant and Philpot for sure, but you have a really good player behind them. If ever one of those guys goes down or one of those guys needs a breather, I think Furvius can jump in there and he can make plays. There's no doubt in my mind. I think I've seen it throughout this training camp, how impressive he's been. He's a guy who waited on the practice roster the first half of the year last year, but he really was a big part of what they did on special teams. And special teams, a big reason why the Montreal Alouettes won the Grey Cup last year. Let's not get it twisted. It was absolutely big-time play on special teams, whether it's in the East Final with James Letcher returning a kickoff for a touchdown when the Argos got a little too close. Or just the subtle plays, limiting the opposition's returners. In that aspect of special teams. So, it's one of those things where it's impressive. You wanna see that continue on special teams, and you need some of these receivers, some of these American guys are gonna have to play on special teams, and Shedler Furvius, a Canadian, is a big part of the special teams as well. All right, there's a guy that I have not mentioned yet. He's the player that I think I've gotten the most questions on in training camp. And people want to know, what does Reggie White Jr. look like? For those who don't remember, Reggie White suffered a serious knee injury that required surgery in the Thanksgiving Day game against the Ottawa Red Blacks 2 years ago, so 2 seasons ago. So that was 2022. Was the number 2 receiver behind Geno Lewis, had over 700 yards in that campaign, but unfortunately was needed to be helped off the field. And it fell into some signage. It was tough. But I can tell you that late last season, he practiced, with the team. He was cleared for practice. And as we got closer to the playoffs, we were starting to see, a very comfortable, a very confident Reggie White Jr. And so I was really curious to see what another full off season at full health could do for him. And he's come in. He's looked good. Reggie White looks good. Still a young guy, just 28 years old. Even though he hasn't played in a year and a half. I mean, this is a guy who still has really good hands, strong body, can go up and get the ball. I think he's looked really good. And so I think that there's a chance, that Reggie White could fall right back into this starting lineup with a couple good preseason games. We'll see. Not necessarily the fastest player, was never the fastest player. And we'll see how he looks in live fire action after such a major knee injury. But to me, from what I've seen so far through a week of camp, Reggie White Jr. looks pretty good. He looks pretty darn good. So, I think it's one of those situations where, we'll see how it plays out, but there are bodies here. They're not just camp bodies. There are players that can play. There are guys that can perform for these quarterbacks and for this offense. And so I'm really curious to see how it all plays out. But I'll guarantee you one thing. Not every receiver is going to make the team. The Alouettes are going to cut good receivers. I'll tell you that right now. The Alouettes are going to cut at least 1 or 2 receivers that can play in the Canadian Football League. Now, I know there are a lot of American receivers out there. There are a lot of players across the league. Receiver is a position that, it's tough to latch on because there are good Canadians at those positions as well. But I'm just telling you now that the competition is so stiff that good players are going to get cut. Good players are going to get cut. I guarantee you that that's going to happen. So that just means that the level of competition is going to be high. Obviously, Montreal is going to want to keep the best ones. We'll see how many Americans they can keep. But I'm just telling you that what I've seen so far from the receiving group has been really, really impressive. All right. More on that with our next guest, Tyson Philpot. Nice enough to join us now.
You want to describe what that offseason was like for me? Was it any harder to stay focused when you get to celebrate the ultimate in the sport?
I don't think so. I think it was more motivation than anything. Obviously, just hearing from the naysayers and stuff like that, it was a fluke or that we got lucky. So I think it was definitely good for motivation. And then, obviously staying in Montreal for the whole offseason was good. Just getting work with PO and just kind of building more familiarity with the city and the team, and yeah, it was great.
You had players, or anybody tell you it was a fluke?
Yeah, well, not to me directly, but I don't want to sneak it out, but yeah, Kaon said he was working out with some Bomber guys, and they said it was a fluke, and we should not have won. So I just put it out there.
I know some guys are kind of a little pissed off that you guys play week 1, but over there, are you frustrated by that?
Honestly, I just look at it as another game, so definitely not frustrated. I definitely believe we earned a home game to start the season, but at the end of the day, it's just another football game, so I'm excited to go into that kind of atmosphere, and just show them why we won last year.
You talked about moving to Montreal during the winter. Why did you feel that it was important for you to do that?
Just for the culture and the team. This being my third season with the Montreal Alouettes, I've just felt like it's just a home city, and everyone's welcomed me so much. And just of course winning, you want to be enriched with all the things that come with it. So a little bit of that, but also just being able to stay with PO and make sure my hamstrings are straight and make sure I'm 100% coming into camp.
Yeah, I think the first two camps you missed a little bit of time the first one, and then a lot of it the last year. How frustrating was that? And now, I mean, you seem like full systems go from the very beginning. I'm assuming that all the work you put in the offseason really helped with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's always frustrating preparing in that offseason. Have a long, grueling offseason, and then you come into camp and get hurt on day one, both first years. So this is the longest I've been in camp, so it's kind of been a little ongoing joke with me and Mike, just how fresh we're feeling and just how great it is to truly be out here with the guys and, go through everything. So just a blessing, just shows the work that I did in the offseason, and, it's just showing on the field.
Mike Leonello, the receivers coach, to clarify. When did you feel comfortable last year? Because you missed 5 games. Was it 5 weeks you missed? 5. When did you really feel like you had hit your stride? Like, how hard is it to get into rhythm, Tyson, when everyone else is and you're not?
Yeah, definitely. Just that chemistry with Cody, wasn't really there. I think it was the first game against Calgary. Had a little dig route, and he missed me. It was just a little tempo thing, and we came back and we're like, yeah, it's just we didn't have that kind of chemistry. But I think probably that Toronto game when I caught that slant for the first touchdown of the season, I think that's when I kind of was like, yeah, like I'm back into it. And Coach Moss had even said there was a little sideline catch when I turned up the field, and he was like, that's when he saw the real Tyson. So I think they all kind of felt like it came together then, and then we're just off and running from there.
I know that when fans have talked to me about how do you replace Austin Mack, I know it's 1,200 yards and some touchdowns and whatever, but is it, do you guys feel like, to me, I don't look at it as the X receiver has to replace the production. Like, I think you have more yards to give. I think Keon has more yards to give. I think Snead has more yards to give. Is that how you see you guys maybe replace those yards with a guy replacing him physically, but you guys kind of step up and pick up more yardage?
Yeah, that's definitely how we see it. We see it as a next man up, but also as a group mentality. I feel like we have such an unselfish group. We're always cheering for the guy when he makes a play. It's never, Cody always says, like, you guys are great because you guys never ask me for the ball. He shares the ball and everyone's happy with that. So I feel like that's kind of the mentality we have, and even with the new guys, they've kind of bought into that kind of mentality. It's not going to be one guy that goes off. We have to fall in behind that. It's going to be everyone contributing, and I feel like that's when you're the most dangerous for sure.
You have goals individual? Like, do you have numbers?
Honestly, winning the game is always my number one goal. But of course, I want to be a 1,000-yard receiver. That's kind of the standard in the CFL, and I definitely think I'm capable of doing that. It's just going to come down to opportunity and making sure I take advantage of all those opportunities. But yeah, 1,000 yards would be great, and that's when you get paid as a receiver. So,
well, speaking of getting paid, usually, especially in the CFL, like you guys don't really sign extensions early. Everyone complains about the turnover. You decided to extend early. Why did you feel, outside of the financial component that made sense, why did you feel like it was important for you to extend now?
Yeah, first and foremost, just my love of the city of Montreal. There's nowhere I would see myself playing outside of Montreal. So starting with that, and then just the production and everything that came with it, I just felt like it was time to stay here. And he said not the financial part, but just the love of the city.
Okay, give me some of the things, like some sneaky things that you appreciate about Montreal.
Le Banquet, that is
Banquise?
Banquise, that is my spot. I talked with the owner a little bit after I went there the first time, and he said, anytime you bring the boys back. So we might have to get a little receiver poutine.
Okay, give me your what's your order when you go there? Your typical order.
See, I'm a basic guy, but if I want to go there, they have some crazy poutine. I can't remember the name of it, but I like bacon, sausage, and I think it's like a 3-meat type with some ground beef on there too. So just more protein.
Had you because I just feel like the poutine in the rest of Canada is it's not bad. It's just a little off. Like there's just, I guess they don't have the gravy and the cheese and it's hard. Like, were you a big poutine guy before you got here?
I was. It's different though. Like Vancouver poutine and Montreal poutine are completely different. Like you said, the gravy tastes a little bit different, and they like to do some shredded cheese in Vancouver too, which isn't
shredded.
Which is not true poutine. I stand on my Montreal poutine. Anytime I have friends or family that come out, I make sure I get them right. So I was, but it's a no-brainer that Montreal is better.
Anything else on the Montreal front? Just stuff that you kind of appreciate around town?
No. I'm still living downtown, so it's been great just to kind of see the city. I'm excited for F1. The city always turns up for that. We'll be away obviously in Winnipeg. Hopefully we get that first win and then we come back and celebrate. But just excited to get it going and get the season going.
I know Jalen missed, I think, all of last year. Saw some footage out of Calgary that he's back. I mean, how can you just tell us maybe how hard he worked to rehab and how tough mentally that was for him? And how'd you help pick him up?
Yeah, no, just being a little brother to him, and it was great to see him when we were back home. Waking up at 5 a.m. just see how determined and how he's progressed in his injury. First major injury in his career, so some people sink and some people swim. So he's definitely a swimmer, and he's put all the work in. And I'm just so happy to see him out there in training camp and just doing what he loves to do. But yeah, I just seen his growth and his maturity with his injury. So I'm excited to see what he does and wake the league up for sure.
On the field, what does he do better than you?
I don't know. I mean, we're very competitive, but I'll give him his props. He's a very shifty guy. Just like me. Put the ball in his hands in space. He can make anybody miss. They love to use him in the backfield in Calgary and stuff like that. So I'm excited just to see him get some jet sweeps. And I feel like some guys have kind of forgot about him, and he was the 5th overall pick for a reason. And I'm just excited for him to wake everybody up.
What do you do better than him? Definitely better than him.
I think he would attest to it too. I'm just a better deep ball threat. I've been a little bit of a true receiver for a little bit longer. So I got those post routes as we've seen in the Grey Cup, and any kind of deep route is definitely my repertoire. But I give him his props. He's good. He's good at it too.
Who got yelled at more growing up?
Definitely him.
For what?
He was definitely the troublemaker, in school. I followed along, so he was a big brother. I always let him make the mistake first, and then I would probably follow after. So maybe it makes me worse. But he was definitely getting in trouble. He was a little bit of a bad kid as a start, but he figured it out, and now we're here.
He's back on the rails. Yep, I like that. You keep saying you said you're the little brother. Now you said big brother. I mean, how much of a head start did he get on you?
Yeah, only 7 minutes, but
7.
I know, that's it. Jeez. Yeah. I give him his props. I'm the middle child, or I'm the youngest child, so I'll take it.
7 minutes.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Listen, I'll give you credit because not many guys would want to be the little brother.
I know, I'll take that.
But that's fine. Just here looking ahead to 2024, I just think, I can't find a better Canadian duo than you and Keon. When Keon went down, he was the first time he was top 5 in receiving. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, how do you see it, with you guys ratio changes? But, I feel like you guys are good players. Like, you don't need the Canadian label. Just what do you think that you and Keon are capable of this year?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, ratio aside, Canadian aside, I think we're 2 of the best receivers definitely in the league, and we're excited to be healthy and together. We worked a little bit in the offseason too, so we're just ready to show the league what we're about. We both feel like we can definitely be 1,000-yard receivers. Kalen's got big goals in mind, especially like you said last year, he was leading the league, our top 2 before he got hurt. So just excited to see what he can do, and I think we're going to shake some heads.
Can you just give the a lot of fans don't get to come to training camp, but in your positional group, is there a couple of the new American guys, anybody that kind of jump out at you, stand out, and what have you seen from those people?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a very competitive group this year. There's no fall off anywhere, and some guys that have caught my eye are definitely Ramad, 73. He's been making plays all camp.
I'm not even going to try that last name.
Yeah, that's why I just went Ramad, and he's cool with that too. And then I would say Charleston Rambo.
Yeah.
I knew about him just with the hype he had coming out of college and, just following NCAA. So I think he's made plays consistently, shown that he's a deep ball threat too. So just excited, to have some new guys on the team. We're all burners. We're all good chemistry. So, yeah, it's going to be a great team.
Lastly, I've been asking all the guys this, but your best Jason Moss story that I've never heard. Ooh. Like, is he a funny dude?
He definitely is a funny dude. In the team meetings and stuff, very stern. His point comes across always. But in the offensive meetings, he lays back, kicks his feet up. His best story, I don't know. He was telling a good story earlier this training camp just about Bear Moss, his son, and one of his touchdown celebrations, and it cracked us up a little bit. I was coaching some kids, and they were asking me about Bear, and they said he was a great receiver, and then Coach Moss was mocking his touchdown celebration. So that was a little funny, but yeah, no, Coach Moss is a great dude.
Thanks for doing this, Tyson.
Sweet, thank you guys.
Thanks again to Tyson Philpot. Always a laugh. Talking to Tyson after, people forget Tyson's only 23 and already coming off being a Grey Cup hero. So I think the sky's the limit for Tyson Philpot's potential this season. Made the big move to during the offseason to Montreal to live here full time. And he's hoping that's going to pay dividends for him in training camp and to start the season. All right, a reminder that if you want to come out to St-Jérôme, not far from Montreal, guys, you can watch the intra-squad game at the Complexe Sportif Claude Beaulieu. It is a great facility. They're expecting a lot of people. The game starts at 20 to 5, but there are festivities as of 2:30. There's going to be a tailgate. There's going to be activities. So bring the kids, bring the family. Everything's free. There's going to be a concert after the game. You're not going to want to miss that experience, and a free night out with the family. Where else can you do that? Watching professional football players, watching the defending Grey Cup champs in action. When they win it again in November, you can say, hey, I was there for the first intra-squad game back in St-Jérôme in mid-May. Reminder that we do have live football against an opponent Saturday, May the 25th. That's just over a week away from the time of this recording here on Friday morning. Massive. Make sure you get your tickets at goalsgo.com for that preseason game. And while you're there, you're a fan of the Alouettes, you don't have your season tickets yet, make sure you pick up your season ticket package ASAP, and because you want to be there for the home opener, you want to be there for key games. There's a tribute night, the 50-year anniversary of the 1974 Grey Cup victory. That's happening in late August. Trevor Harris is going to come back to Montreal for the first time since leaving here. Gino Lewis, that's happening as well. William Stanback, some familiar faces that you're going to want to see the Alouettes beat up on a little bit. So make sure you have your season tickets for the coming season. That's all for this episode of the PodcAls. We'll be back next week. We'll recap exactly what went down at the intra-squad game. We'll preview what to look out for in the first preseason game, and we'll get you all caught up in all of the news and notes around the Montreal Alouettes. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. We'll see you on the field soon.